I never thought I'd end up on a ranch in Wyoming. I'm a software developer from Seattle, used to coffee shops in rain and the glow of computer screens at 2 in the morning. But when my company decided we all needed to disconnect and recharge at some corporate retreat, they shipped 15 of us to the middle of nowhere. 5 days at the Broken Arrow Ranch, owned by some family friend of our CEO team building exercises, horseback riding, the whole 9 yards. I was dreading every second of it. That first morning, standing outside the main lodge with my coworkers, all of us looking ridiculous in brand new boots that hadn't been broken in yet, I was already counting down the hours until I could get back to civilization. The ranch stretched out in every direction, endless brown grass and fence posts and mountains in the distance that looked like they'd been painted onto the sky. It was beautiful in a way that made me uncomfortable. Too much space, too much silence. Then I saw him. He came walking out of the barn, and I swear to God, time did that thing it's not supposed to do outside of movies. He was tall, probably 6'2", with shoulders that filled out his flannel shirt in a way that made my mouth go dry. Dark hair under a worn cowboy hat, strong jaw with a few days of stubble. And these hands. I noticed his hands immediately. They were working hands, scarred and calloused, capable hands that looked like they knew exactly what they were doing. Our eyes met across the yard, just for a second, and something in my chest tightened. "Morning, folks," he said, his voice low and rough like gravel. "I'm Colt Branson. My family owns this ranch. I'll be taking you through some of the daily operations this week, teaching you a thing or two about ranch life." Colt. Of course his name was Colt. My coworker Jennifer whispered, "Oh my God, he's like a romance novel cover come to life." She wasn't wrong, but I couldn't exactly agree out loud. I'd been out at work for 2 years, but there's a difference between people knowing you're gay and actively thirsting over a cowboy in front of them. The morning started with basic ranch chores, mucking out stalls, feeding horses, stuff that had all of us city people completely out of our element. I ended up in the same group as Colt, along with 4 others. He was patient, I'll give him that. When Jennifer nearly got trampled trying to pet a horse that clearly wanted nothing to do with her, he gently guided her back with a hand on her shoulder and explained how to read the animal's body language. When it was my turn to try feeding one of the horses, I was nervous. I'd never been around animals this big. "Here," Colt said, stepping close behind me. "Hold your hand flat like this." His hand covered mine, adjusting my fingers, and I felt the warmth of him at my back. He smelled like leather and hay and something clean, like cedar. "That's it. Keep your hand steady. Let him come to you." The horse's soft nose brushed against my palm, whiskers tickling, and then his lips were taking the apple slice I held. I laughed, surprised by the gentle way such a big creature could move. "Good," Colt said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "You're a natural." He stepped back, but I could still feel the ghost of his presence behind me, the warmth of his hand on mine. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activities I was terrible at. By dinner, every muscle in my body ached. I'd been thrown from a horse during a riding lesson, landed in mud during a demonstration about irrigation systems, and somehow managed to get hay in places hay should never be. I was exhausted and sore and seriously questioning my company's definition of team building. But I couldn't stop thinking about Colt, the way he moved with such easy confidence, the rare smiles he gave that transformed his whole face, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when one of us said something particularly city stupid. That night, I couldn't sleep. The bunkhouse we were staying in was too quiet, and my brain wouldn't shut off. Around midnight, I gave up and decided to take a walk. The ranch at night was different, peaceful. The stars were incredible, more than I'd ever seen in my life, scattered across the sky like someone had thrown diamonds against black velvet. I wandered toward the barn, not really thinking about where I was going, just needing to move. The barn door was open, light spilling out into the darkness. I heard movement inside, the soft sound of someone talking to the horses. I should have turned back, gone to bed, but instead I found myself walking inside. Colt was there, checking on a mare in one of the stalls. He looked up when he heard my footsteps, surprise crossing his face. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. "Too quiet," I said. "I'm used to traffic noise, sirens, the whole urban symphony." He smiled at that, a real smile, and leaned against the stall door. Yeah, I imagine this is pretty different from Seattle. You know where I'm from? Your CEO mentioned it. Plus, you've got that Pacific Northwest look about you. The beard, the flannel. He paused. Though I'm guessing yours is more ironic flannel than working flannel. I laughed. Guilty. This is actually the first time I've worn boots that weren't the fashion kind. How are they treating you? I have blisters on my blisters. He winced sympathetically. Yeah, breaking in new boots is rough. You should have said something. I've got some moleskin in the office that'll help. I didn't want to be that guy. The one who can't handle a little discomfort. Colt studied me for a moment, his expression thoughtful. You did good today. Better than good, actually. Most city folks, first time they get thrown, they don't get back on the horse. You did. Didn't really feel like I had a choice. There's always a choice. You chose to get back on. That takes guts. Something about the way he said it, the genuine respect in his voice, made my chest feel tight. We stood there in the barn, the only sounds the horses shifting in their stalls and the wind outside, and I felt this pull toward him that was both terrifying and exhilarating. Can I ask you something? I said before I could stop myself. Shoot. Do you ever get tired of this? The ranch, the routine, the same thing every day? He considered the question, really thought about it. Sometimes, he admitted, there are days when I wonder what it would be like to just leave, see the world, live in a city where nobody knows my name. But then I wake up early and watch the sunrise over the east pasture, or I help birth a foal, or I fix something that's been broken, and I remember why I'm here. This place is in my blood. It's who I am. That must be nice, I said quietly, knowing who you are, where you belong. You don't? I shrugged. I'm good at my job. I make decent money. I have friends. But sometimes I feel like I'm just going through the motions, you know? Wake up, work, sleep, repeat. I can't remember the last time I felt really alive. Colt was quiet for a moment. Then he pushed off from the stall door. Come on, I want to show you something. I followed him out of the barn and across the yard to a fence that overlooked the pasture. The moon was nearly full, bright enough to cast shadows, and in its light I could see the horses grazing, their coats silvered. This is my favorite spot on the ranch, Colt said, resting his forearms on the top rail of the fence. When things get heavy, when I need to think, I come here. Something about watching the horses, seeing them just exist without worry or stress, it puts things in perspective. I leaned against the fence next to him, our shoulders almost touching. It's beautiful. Yeah. He turned his head to look at me, and in the moonlight, his eyes were dark and intense. It is. We weren't talking about the horses anymore. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. I wanted to say something, do something, but I was frozen. This wasn't Seattle. This wasn't a gay bar where I could read the signals and know what was safe. This was Wyoming, and Colt was a rancher's son, and I had no idea if the electricity I felt between us was real or just wishful thinking. I should get back, I said, my voice coming out rougher than I intended. Early morning tomorrow. Something flickered across Colt's face. Disappointment, maybe. Or maybe I was projecting. Yeah, he said, get some rest. Tomorrow we're doing branding. It's physical work. Great, I said. More opportunities for me to embarrass myself. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. You're doing fine. Better than fine. I walked back to the bunkhouse in a daze, my mind replaying every moment of that conversation, analyzing every word, every look. I barely slept. The next day was a blur of activity. Colt taught us about the branding process, the importance of marking the cattle, the tradition of it. Most of my coworkers were squeamish about the whole thing, but I found myself fascinated by the precision of it, the skill required. Want to try? Colt asked me late in the afternoon. Really? Really? Come here. I walked over to where he stood by the branding fire. He handed me the iron, then stepped behind me, his body close to mine. Hold it steady, he said, his breath warm against my ear. You've got to be confident, quick and clean. His arms came around mine, his hands covering mine on the iron, guiding me. I could feel the solid strength of his chest against my back, the way his body curved around mine. Every point of contact felt electric. Now, he said. Together, we pressed the brand to the calf's hide. It was over in seconds, but I knew I'd remember the feeling of his arms around me for the rest of my life. "Perfect," he said, stepping back. "You're a natural at this, too." I turned to look at him, and our faces were inches apart. His eyes dropped to my lips just for a second, and I saw it. The want. The same pull I'd been feeling. Then one of my co-workers called his name, and the moment shattered. That night, I didn't even pretend I was going to sleep. I waited until everyone else was out, then I headed back to the barn. I didn't know if he'd be there. I didn't know what I'd say if he was. I just knew I had to try. The barn was dark this time, but I could see a light on in what looked like an office at the back. I walked toward it, my heart in my throat. Colt was sitting at a desk going over paperwork. He looked up when I appeared in the doorway, and I saw the same war I'd been fighting play out across his face. "Hey," I said. "Hey." I couldn't sleep again. "Me neither." He set down his pen. "Look, I need to tell you something." "Okay." He stood up, ran a hand through his hair. "I don't do this. I don't get involved with guests. It's unprofessional and complicated, and my father would kill me." "Okay," I said again, my stomach sinking. "But I can't stop thinking about you." The words came out in a rush. "From the moment I saw you yesterday morning, I haven't been able to get you out of my head. The way you laugh when you're nervous, the way you actually listen when I talk instead of just waiting for your turn to speak, the way you got back on that horse even though you were scared." I couldn't breathe. "Colt, tell me I'm crazy," he said. "Tell me I'm reading this wrong and I'll back off. I'll be professional and we'll get through the next 3 days and you'll go back to Seattle and that'll be that." I crossed the small office in 2 steps and kissed him. He made a sound of surprise, then his arms came around me, pulling me closer. He kissed like he did everything else, with confidence and skill and an intensity that made my knees weak. His hand cupped the back of my head, fingers threading through my hair, and I gripped his shirt, trying to get closer, needing more. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "Not crazy," I managed to say. "Definitely not crazy." He laughed, the sound shaky. "What are we doing?" "I don't know, but I don't want to stop." "You're leaving in 3 days." "I know. I can't leave the ranch. This is my life." "I know. This is a terrible idea. Probably the worst." He kissed me again, softer this time, sweeter. "I don't care," he whispered against my lips. "I want these 3 days with you, however we can have them." We spent that night in his office, talking until the sun started to rise. He told me about growing up on the ranch, about the pressure of being the oldest son, expected to take over the family business, about coming out to his parents at 22 and his father not speaking to him for 6 months, about the loneliness of being gay in a small town where everyone knew everyone. I told him about my life in Seattle, about climbing the corporate ladder and feeling empty at the top, about relationships that fizzled because I kept people at arm's length, about being so scared of getting hurt that I'd stopped really trying. "What are you scared of?" he asked, his thumb tracing patterns on the back of my hand. "This," I admitted, "feeling this much this fast, knowing it has an expiration date." "Then let's not think about the expiration date. Let's just be here now." The next 2 days were the best of my life. We stole moments whenever we could, early mornings before the others woke up, late nights in the barn. He taught me to rope, standing behind me with his arms around mine, guiding my movements. We rode out to check the fence line, just the 2 of us, and made out against a fence post like teenagers. He showed me his favorite spots on the ranch, shared pieces of himself I knew he didn't share with many people. And I fell for him, hard and fast and completely. On the last night, we lay in the bed of his truck, looking up at the stars. My head was on his chest, his arm around me, and everything felt perfect and terrible at the same time. "Come with me," I said suddenly, "to Seattle. You could visit, see what it's like. Maybe you'd like it." He was quiet for a long moment. "I can't just leave the ranch. My family depends on me." "I know, I sat up, looking down at him. "I don't want this to end." "Neither do I." He reached up, cupping my face. "But I can't be someone I'm not. This ranch, this life, it's who I am. And I can't stay here. I have a career, a life back home." "I know." We held each other as the stars wheeled overhead, neither of us willing to say what we both knew. Some things, no matter how right they feel, aren't meant to last. The next morning, loading into the van that would take us back to the airport, I looked back at the ranch one last time. Colt stood by the barn, his hat in his hands, watching me leave. Even from a distance, I could see the sadness in his posture. I almost got out of the van, almost ran back to him and said, "Screw it all, I'll figure it out." But I didn't. I let the van pull away, watched the ranch disappear in the distance, and tried not to cry in front of my coworkers. Back in Seattle, I threw myself into work, but everything felt gray now. The coffee shops I used to love seemed loud and impersonal. My apartment felt like a box. I'd go to gay bars and scan the crowd, but no one made me feel the way Colt had. 3 months passed. We texted sometimes, called occasionally, but it hurt too much. The distance between us wasn't just miles, it was worlds. Eventually, the messages grew further apart. Then, one Friday night, my buzzer rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I almost didn't answer. But something made me press the intercom. "Yeah? It's me." My heart stopped. I knew that voice. I buzzed him up, my hands shaking, and stood in my doorway watching the elevator numbers climb. When the doors opened and Colt stepped out, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt and looking completely out of place in my modern building, I couldn't move. "Hey," he said, stopping a few feet away. "What are you doing here?" "I hired a ranch manager. Told my father I needed some time to figure things out. He wasn't happy, but he understood." He took a step closer. "I've been miserable without you. Every morning I wake up and the first thing I think about is you. I go to our spot by the fence and I remember how you looked in the moonlight. I can't do it anymore. I can't pretend that what we had was just a vacation fling." "Colt, I don't know how this works. I don't know if I can live in a city long term, and I don't know if you can live on a ranch. But I know I love you. And I think we owe it to ourselves to try." I crossed the space between us and kissed him, right there in the hallway, and it felt like coming home. "I love you too," I said. "We'll figure it out. Somehow we'll figure it out." And we did. It wasn't easy. There were compromises and hard conversations and moments when we both wondered if we were crazy. But I started working remotely part of the time, spending weeks at the ranch. He came to Seattle, experienced the city life he'd always wondered about. We built a life together that was neither his world nor mine, but ours. 2 years later, I stood in that same barn where we'd first really talked, watching Colt work with a new group of corporate retreat guests. He caught my eye and smiled, that same smile that had caught my heart the first day I saw him. After everyone left, he pulled me close, his arms around my waist. "No regrets?" he asked. I thought about my old life, the one where I was going through the motions. Then I thought about this, about us, about the life we'd built together, about morning coffee on the porch watching the sunrise, about helping with the branding every year, about splitting our time between two worlds and somehow making it work. "Not a single one," I said, and kissed him as the sun set over the ranch, painting the sky in shades of gold and red, beautiful and wild and home.